History, crimes and cover-ups in American politics, 1776 to 1963, and survival of the richest, Donald Jeffries separates the real from the unreal. Fact from fiction. Fact from fiction. Reverse engineering our manufactured reality. And now, from just outside the swamp-infested Washington, D.C., this is I Protest with Donald Jeffries.
And welcome to I Protest. It's Donald Jeffries here with you, coming to you from just outside the swamp-infested Washington, D.C., as the man tells you, every Friday from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern. We have a couple guests today. The first hour, my guest is Drew Thomas Allen. He's the author. I don't know why that music's still playing. Should have faded out. Tony, can you make sure it fades out? It's still playing. Okay, it's gone. Sorry about that. Drew Thomas Allen is the author of America's Last Stand. Will you vote to save or destroy America in 2024? I know him as a publicist. He's got me guests before. He has some big names like Tulsi Gabbard, Carrie Lake, Dr. Ben Carson, and he also is the host of the Drew Allen Show on Patriot TV. Drew, thanks for coming on.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here. I mean, I don't know what's worse. You live outside the swamp in D.C. I live here in California. But It's always good to come together with like minds.
Yeah, well, then that's, obviously you're probably in the capital of the decaying culture, I guess, which is out there. So I would say it's the capital of the culture out there. So I guess you see the lunatics walking around in the streets and all that. I mean, we get a little of that out of here, but anyway, so how did you, I've been at this for a long time. I started the JFK assassination a long time ago as a teenager with Mark Lane's group. And I've been down these rabbit holes. I was awake before anybody knew what it was. What caused you to, get into this? Was it support for Donald Trump, or were you political before that? What caused you to become putting your toes into these waters where I've been for so long?
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it kind of happened in 2020. Now, something about me, I've always been a conservative. I was raised by conservative parents, listening to Rush Limbaugh in my dad's car as he took me to soccer practice and basically everywhere. So I through osmosis, really did take in a lot of information at a young age. But I grew up in Texas, right? So I think this is important because I'm not quite as great as like a Ronald Reagan, who's a convert, or, the Apostle Paul, who was, formerly Saul, who persecuted. I think some of the greatest contributors to any movement are people who were pure converts. Right. I was not a convert. I was always a conservative, but I always lived around Democrats. So I grew up in Dallas. People assume Texas is very conservative, but I went to an all-male Jesuit college preparatory elitist school in Dallas, North Dallas. And so very liberal, left-leaning. And then I went off to Pepperdine in Malibu. I am a Christian. I grew up in the Church of Christ, but I was a theater major and I had a theater scholarship. So the theater world was not a conservative space. I ended up going to New York City. I was an actor. Ended up moving to Milan, Italy, where I worked for Marc Jacobs in fashion, opening the first retail store in Italy. I lived there 2.5 years, moved back to LA eventually, continued acting, became a film producer, produced a movie. This is about 2017. And then I got out of Hollywood and, fast forward kind of to 2020, and I just became activated. I lost all of my childhood friends because I voted for Trump. I wasn't a closeted conservative, but I became very acutely aware of the danger we face as a country. I'm less afraid, Don, of the politicians in Washington, D.C. who are Marxists, because there are fewer of them, than I am of my neighbor that would cheer on them hauling me away to some kind of prison camp.
Yes.
So 2020, that happened. I became a columnist and actually was a pundit, started my podcast. And then actually my publicist ended up bringing me on to work for him and become a publicist. So that's how I got in this sphere. And so I still do my other stuff. But as you said, I'm a publicist and have been for a lot of these biggest names in politics. So I do understand kind of the behind the scenes, what you're doing, also what's happening out there, and a lot of the nitty gritty, disgusting things that people should become aware of about the functioning of the swamp.
Well, what did you during your? I'm interested in your acting career. I don't know how much acting you did, but you must have seen some interesting things. I'm guessing. I don't know. Were you in plays? Were you in films, movies, or anything, or TV? Or
Yeah, a lot of theater, some TV. As an actor, you do a lot of auditioning. So
right?
you audition for these big things, and most of the time you don't get them. And my experience in Hollywood, I did not. I have friends who have gone on and are successful, and some of them are household names. But I don't know if friend is the word anymore, but they were. But no, I mean something interesting that happened to me is when I was producing a film called "I Hate the Man in My Basement." Um, we were talking to high level agencies because the reality is when you submit to these film festivals, only 5 of them matter. They're the market festivals like Sundance, South by Southwest, these
Right.
big festivals where you actually sell. People are there to buy film. So that's where you want to go. And so the way it works too is people who pay their submission fees are schmucks. I don't mean that to insult you, but what's happening really is behind the scenes, and they're organizing the festival with the big talent agencies like CAA. So unless you have somebody like that talking to, because look, South by Southwest, they get 10,000 film submissions. If you don't even have to be good at math. There's not enough hours for them to watch that number of films. So anyway, we were talking to CAA, and they told us at one point, my director and I, who both happen to be white males, and they told us it was a bad time for us. And I said,
Yeah.
what do you mean it's a bad time? This was kind of around Me Too. This was the time period where it was they were on a they were desperate to make sure that there were as many women filmmakers as possible. And so they wanted to inflate those numbers. And so anyway, I kind of grew tired of Hollywood. This kind of happened. I was fine. I ended up selling the film, down the road. But my point is, this is kind of the Hollywood I was in. It was not a meritocracy. It was very discriminatory. And of course, the films that I wanted to make, they were not interested in. So last story about that, I was trying to make this movie about my cousin who was a famous golfer named Byron Nelson. People know him as Lord Byron.
I've heard of him. Sure. Yeah.
So, he won 11 tournaments in a
One of the
row.
all-time greats. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. And so anyway, I was trying to make a documentary and then a film, one or the other, about him. And I was having discussions with people in Hollywood about this project that I have the rights to and everything else. And they just told me after a while, this is not a story that we're interested in or that people are interested in. I said, why? They said, well, he didn't sleep around or do drugs or anything. I said, what are you talking about? What happened to the inspirational stories about somebody who overcomes all of the odds? The guy was given up twice before he was 11 years old for dead. His family didn't want him to play golf. He had to win to eat. You don't see this as some kind of inspirational story for young people that pursue their dreams. And of course, that's not what they're interested in because they're more focused on the vices of mankind.
Right, and he's so white and so male, and he comes from what I call America 1.0, an antiquated time. Wasn't he a Southerner too? Wasn't he?
Yeah. He was born and raised in Texas.
Yeah, because I came along too after he played, but I remember he was on the golf coverage a lot. He would, he would, and I remember his very genteel Southern accent. But that's fascinating. You're related to him, so you come to this world basically. Like you, I got sucked into Trump too in 2016. I mean, I'm very jaded. I've been around this block so many times, but Trump was saying a lot of stuff I'd been saying for a long time. Revolutionary rhetoric in 2016. I lost a lot of friends too, a lot of people in the JFK community, especially because most of them were liberal. They couldn't stand the first Republican I ever voted for, and I mean, I almost always voted third party, but so when you but you said you didn't really come along until 2020. So 2020 so you came at the time and you see what happened in the election and everything. And I've had lots of January 6 people on the show. I've had Ashley Babbitt's mother on a couple times. It's I really feel for they're political prisoners. But so describe what happened. That was kind of your political awakening.
Yeah. And it's not, 2016, I was a supporter of Trump, but actually I was not a supporter of Trump at first. I was actually one of those Ted Cruz guys out there.
Right.
And, but, I actually, what I think many of us realize is that because Trump is somebody who's pragmatic, it's not necessarily ideological like I was growing up, in the Reagan world, Rush Limbaugh, conservatism. It was, if you actually want results, if you want to do the right thing for the country, at the end of the day, you kind of end up moving towards those conservative principles and positions, whether it's the economy, national security, and so on and so forth. So here was a guy that proved us all wrong. He ended up being one of the more conservative presidents in recent American history. And he was a guy who was a former Democrat. And of course, when we began to see what he was up against, this true coup attempt, I mean, I think people still don't understand the gravity of what has happened in prior years and what is still happening today. But when we got to 2020, I mean, I just saw the rabid lunacy of the left in terms of the COVID lockdowns. And I call it, in my book, I call it 21st century Jim Crow. I mean, this Democrat Party was basically reinstituting these new official and mostly unofficial laws that were discriminatory against people who weren't vaccinated. And ironically, of course, many of those people happened to be Black, the so-called vaccine hesitant. Right. And, I think we got a glimpse into the raw tyranny that was at the heart and root of this modern Democrat Party today, in particular, that they're totally gone. I mean, there's not even a remnant of anything that might give us hope that party has any intention of doing good. And I became very fearful, actually, and I realized how dangerous the situation was. And by the way, I just want to say that I'm not a special pleader for the Republican Party. The Republican Party is, at a time in our history when we most need an opposition party, they are totally MIA, or worse, they are part of what we call the uniparty. And these are things that are very real. They're not conspiracy theories. And what we're facing today, which was part of my awakening, is that it is the government, tyrants, the bureaucracy against the American people. That's when you boil it down to what we're up against.
Right. And you're right. I criticize Republicans a lot because they're not, we're seeing what's happening with Mike Johnson now as the speaker, is that they can't get even a guy that they called MAGA Mike. They can't get anybody in a leadership position that will vote with the Freedom Caucus. They all end up being rhinos. So I don't know, Jim Jordan, I thought it was possible. I just, if they nominate Scalise, he's already there. He's going to be the exact same way. But that's what you're right. I call it the evil party and the stupid party. I think if the Democrats are evil and the Republicans are stupid. So you got a choice between evil and stupid. But so is the 2020 election what motivated you to write your book, or was it becoming a publicist and talking to all these people?
Well, I had kind of written this manifesto that I self-published in 2020 that was called Uncommon Sense. And that was addressing the COVID insanity, how we were treating our fellow citizens, the government's big reach, of course, to steal our rights in the name of our best interest. And then I had a daughter a year and a month ago, last March. And it even, if I didn't know it was possible, but it activated me further. It made me more devoted. It gave me additional urgency in terms of speaking out and trying to do something to contribute to helping save this country and open up people's minds and help them undo the decades of naivete and just ignorance of just falling asleep at the wheel. And I knew early on that it was going to be a rematch between Trump and Biden. And I basically, I'm not Thomas Paine, but like Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense in order to basically awaken the American colonists, to get them to talk about the gravity of the situation in the country and to consider the stakes. I wanted to do the same because this moment to me was, and is, this isn't hyperbole, 2024, this election is as important as 1776 and 1861. Now, we are trying to take back our destiny through peaceful means with elections. But of course, what's so dangerous is the Democrats are trying to deprive us of the peaceful means with which we are trying to exercise our rights. And if you do not understand the gravity of the situation, if you don't confront it, then you can't save the country. So it was twofold: to get people to understand historically how significant this moment is in American history, what this election really means to our future, and and then also to convince people why they have to vote for Trump in 2024 if they want to have a fighting chance.
Well, I don't know if you heard Biden's incredible quote today. I saw it online where he basically was ranting against the Second Amendment, but he called Thomas Jefferson's wonderful quote about the Tree of Liberty. He said it was a bunch of crap. So I was like, this is where we are now. We have leaders who absolutely not only are opposed to what the founders believed when they founded the country and fought a war for independence. They despise them, except for Alexander Hamilton, who's a black guy on Broadway because he was the banker's favorite founder. But other than him, they're all dead white racists. So can you imagine we have a president calling a universal quote like that, Jefferson, which is against the backdrop of the revolution? He's saying it's a bunch of crap. I mean, what does that say about our leadership?
Well, our leadership are some of the most vile and stupid people to rule over anyone in American history, and in fact, in world history. These people cannot touch an ounce of the intellect of the founding fathers. Yep. One of the big misunderstandings a lot of Americans have because of the Democrat Party's lies and indoctrination is that, of course, the Democrat Party is somehow progressive, right? They're improving things, moving forward with their ideas. Mm-hmm. And of course, their ideas have been tried and have failed everywhere. There's nothing progressive about their agenda. Now, see, the founding fathers, when the Democrats say, for example, a threat to democracy, we're a constitutional republic. The founding fathers were so brilliant because they didn't choose and construct the Constitution in the way that they did out of ignorance of other systems. It was actually because they intentionally didn't create a democracy because they knew that democracies failed. They gave in to the wild passions of a society, and they led to instability. So that's what's amazing. The founding fathers actually understood all these systems and invented something revolutionary and new to improve upon it. Democrats want to go back to failed social constructs and so on and so forth, and government systems and models, which just displays how ignorant they are.
Yeah, well, and we have, I think, I talk all the time about how we have such a division in this country, but, the people in power now, and it's mostly Democrats, but there's a lot of rhinos too. It is a uniparty. But the Constitution is irrelevant to them. But what I'm mainly concerned about is the Bill of Rights, and they don't like the Bill of Rights. They don't support the Bill of Rights. They don't believe in free speech. And this is a great crisis where we're at. People have to understand, but we keep letting them make inroads. So they come up with something called hate speech. What is that? It's emotion. That's ridiculous. And they just voted on the floor the other day, yesterday, to make anti-Semitism, which they can't even define. What is that? They made a crime, which would include apparently parts of the Bible, the New Testament. So we're very concerning times because both parties voted overwhelmingly for that.
Well, look, the Republicans have never seen a rake that they weren't eager to step on. That's the reality for this particular political party. Yeah. And, what they were trying to do here with this anti-Semitism bill. Now, worst case scenario, there's, and I wouldn't put it past anyone, there is something devious about this, which would criminalize, for example, saying that Jews killed Jesus Christ. Right, because in the past, historically, that's been used, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, right.
But my whole thing with this is, one, you cannot legislate out of existence a hatred from someone's heart.
Exactly.
And this is a virtue signaling bill. And the Republicans are trying, of course, they'll never do this in the past. They won't fight fire with fire. They'll never actually accept who the Democrats are and actually confront them and go to battle with them. But in this case, they try to do something clever, I think, and it shows how stupid they are. Democrats, for example, will pass virtue signaling legislation to try and promote a false narrative about Republicans and set a trap. So, for example, they passed the bill, the Emmett Till bill about lynching. So they criminalized lynching. So it made it a federal crime. Now, this was a joke because obviously it's unlawful and it's a crime to lynch somebody. There's no lynchings.
It wasn't illegal before.
Yes, yes. So they
Yeah,
passed this to try and sell this false narrative that Republicans, of course, are the party of the KKK, this big switch myth, and so on and so forth. Now, Republicans here thought, oh, well, we're going to pass some virtue signaling legislation to show that we're the friends of the Jews. We're the
that's right.
friends of Israel. But
That's
here's the
right.
thing. There's no confusion about who the enemy of Israel is. It is the Democrat Party. This is a Democrat Party problem almost universally, that you have their radical, indoctrinated youth and professional protesters who are out on the streets that are pro-Hamas. This is a problem for the Democrat Party going into the 2024 election. The Republicans don't need to virtue signal that they love Jews more than the pro-Hamas Democrats.
Right.
And so all they did was set themselves up, patting themselves on the back, thinking that they just outmaneuvered the Democrats.
Right.
When the best thing to do sometimes is nothing. When your enemy's making mistakes, do nothing.
Right.
But here they come.
You either believe in free speech or you don't. As you pointed out, it's not. It's first of all, it's not against the law to be racist, whatever that means. It's not against the law to be anti-Semitic, whatever that means. It's not a crime. Yeah, maybe it's a flaw. Nobody want. It's not a good personality characteristic. But just having those feelings, it's like saying, you don't like cheese. So is that? I mean, people with some irrational, you don't. I don't know. You think driving is stupid or something. People have all kinds of beliefs. You can't legislate that kind of stuff. But that's where we are now. And you're right. It is virtue signaling. But you mentioned what I think right now is the most interesting battle we've seen, because this is the first time in my lifetime where Zionism and the control of Jewish influence in media and all that in America has never been talked about openly, but it's being talked about because it's almost all blacks and non-whites are talking about it. And again, it gets into the great replacement and the anti-white agenda that has gone on for years now. It's coming to a head because they can't criticize all those non-whites on college campuses. They look at Israel as a white colonizer, and they look at the Palestinians as non-white. So who are they going to root for? It's obvious. So it's coming to a head because they can't really go against non-whites because it goes against their agenda. And so they don't know what to do. It's kind of blowing. I think it's very interesting.
Well, it just shows how flawed the thinking is on the part of the left. I mean, at the end of the day, they're just destructive revolutionaries who just, their fuel is hatred, and they're energized by any kind of destruction. So this is the victim class that the Democrats have created. Now, that's what's amazing about this too. And most of these people, they're not really pro-Hamas or even pro-Palestine, many of them. They're just whatever the thing is. So you could take BLM, you can make it now this movement on college campuses. It's all the same. It's all Marxist, and none of them really know what they're doing. They just live in the greatest country in the history of mankind and have the freedom and the free time to engage in these types of ludicrous behaviors. And of course, George Soros is funding much of this. But, I just want to say something else about because you brought it up on this stupid anti-Semitism bill. I mean, look, I understand. I mean, anti-Semitism is wrong, but so is anti-conservatism and anti-MAGA. Now, obviously, there are small groups within America that hate Jews. And a lot of this is certainly because the Democrat Party and the immigration policies, they've imported people like Ilhan Omar. So they brought in these people. They want to bring in Palestinian refugees now. So let's add, fuel to the fire. But where is the bill that makes it illegal to discriminate against conservatives? Because we have been facing this for year after year. We have the president of the United States, former president of the United States, who is being prosecuted and persecuted for things that were not crimes. So my point is, we're supposed to be so outraged about the anti-Semitism on campuses. And yet, where is the same reaction from Republicans to what Democrats have done when the sitting president of the United States, the diaper-wearing fraud, is out there saying all of MAGA supporters are a threat to democracy, when he says it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated? What are these? Is this hate speech against people? When Sarah Huckabee Sanders was booted from the Red Hen restaurant while she was to speak, his press secretary, is that hate? I mean, so this is what I don't get. We have a significant problem boiling up in America, which is persecution of political opponents. And so, anti-Semitism is a problem, but let's not sit here and get together with the Democrats and pretend like we're solving anti-Semitism when they're the ones who want you in prison if you don't go along with him. We have an even more serious problem in this country.
Right. And it's all about the anti-Semitism bill is just an extension of everything. It's about limiting what people can say, limiting what people can think. And again, the left I came from, I'm a classical liberal. I was a member of the ACLU as a teenager. And, back then when they were concerned about civil liberties, I'm a civil libertarian. They don't exist anymore. If they were, they'd be outside of the DC gulag every day, talking about the due process has been denied these people for 3 years, political prisoners, but they don't exist anymore. But the left today is concerned, and this exemplifies that they want to live. It used to be about trying to get people rights, so they thought they didn't have full rights. Let's get rights for people. Now it's about, no, let's take rights away. Let's limit them. And the whole thing is about what you said. The whole thing is to try to catch somebody saying something. What did he say? And then destroy their career, the cancel policy. And this is kind of like, again, the right wing is the stupid party is falling into this trap especially because they support Israel, wholeheartedly. So they're throwing, but it's wrong either way. I tried to point out at the time, if you're against cancel culture, as I am, you have to be consistent. So of course it was wrong when the universities tried to limit even mainstream conservatives like Milo Yiannopoulos and Ann Coulter and people like that. They didn't let them speak. That was obviously wrong, and the right thought it was wrong, obviously. But now it's the same thing. You can't. Why don't you let the pro-Palestinian speakers speak on campus? It's the same kind of thing. But it's again, it's interesting. Nobody seems to believe in free speech completely. They believe in the speech they agree with.
Yeah, you have to be an absolutist when it comes to the Bill of Rights. You absolutely have to. There is no, you can't make concessions. You can't be, lukewarm about it. It has to be an agreement between opposing sides. So look, I mean, people say all kinds of nasty things about me. Obviously, the Democrat Party says unbelievable thing like, if it's, anti-Semitic to say things that have been used historically to drum up violence against Jews. Well, what is it again when the president of the United States and Democrats call Donald Trump Hitler? When they basically justify violence against him because they suggest he's so evil, he must be stopped at all costs. He's a threat to democracy, the end of our democracy if he wins, and so on and so forth. So it's the same thing, but they're allowed to say that. They can say it all day long. But again, I mean, this is where we are as a country, and the media is an amazing thing to me in the sense that it's so powerful. Like, I don't know what it is. I'd have to do a study on why putting someone on camera becomes such a mesmerizing thing that you can listen to, like Joe Scarborough, one of the dumbest human beings ever born on planet Earth, and someone will actually parrot what he says as if it's something smart. They will not formulate their own thoughts. They will simply adopt the thought of Joe Scarborough as their own. They won't push back. There's no criticism. And this is happening across the board in politics, left and right. I think there's certainly obviously a heightened temperature in the country, and it leads to an us versus them situation that's very, very dangerous. And so we have to be adults as well. And I think that's what people need to be focused on, their own spiritual, mental, physical well-being right now, because 2024 is going to come, and even if Trump wins, it's going to get worse in the sense that no one's going to accept this election. No one's going to accept it. And so we need people that understand history, that can become the statesmen we need to stand up and put a stop to what's going to come, because it's going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly. And I'm not going to predict what's going to happen. It's not worth it. But we know that, this particular party right now, the Democrats, rhinos, the deep state, if you will, uniparty, whatever you want to call them, there is nothing they won't do to prevent Donald Trump from giving this country back to the American people.
Oh, absolutely. And it's you're right. They're not going to accept the outcome. So I don't really even know. People, say what is the point of voting? No reforms have been made since 2020, let alone 2022. Because the midterm elections were rife with fraud as well. And again, the stupid party sits there. They're not in unison. Trump is like by himself and his lawyer. Nobody else, there's not a great groundswell of support. And there should have been right from the beginning. The reason after the 2020 election, there was lots to question about it. The entire Republican Party, first and foremost, their alleged leadership, should have been, saying, hey, this is, there's something really fishy here. This is ridiculous. We have to look at this and show all the reasons why it was suspicious. Instead, they instantly said, no, this is ridiculous. Trump's being a poor sport. And then he's left that to do his thing. And I don't see any reason. I think whoever wins in 2024, they're installing them for whatever reason. Because I don't know any reason. Why would we trust the vote at this point? I mean, how many more illegals are in here? They're going to be voting. How many more mail-in ballots are happening? Is nothing stop that? And I think the Republicans are silly. But I mean, he may win, but I think it's just that because maybe they want to collapse the country. Because if Trump wins, if Biden wins, again after January 6th, I don't think the Trump side's going to do anything. I think they're cowed because they don't want to. I don't blame them. I don't want to be political prisoner either. But there will be. It'll look like the summer of 2020 and on steroids, I think, if Trump wins. But I comment on that, and then I wanted you to be able to talk about your book.
Well, sure. I mean, I don't think that either side's going to accept the election results. I'll be honest. No. If you look at the state of the country and the issues that are important to Americans, immigration continues to rank as number one, the economy. Joe Biden did not win fairly in 2020. That's important to acknowledge. They did it with the mail-in ballots. It didn't take, aliens with space lasers to steal it. It was mail-in ballots, and it's very simple to understand and comprehend. Unless they can replicate a situation that permits that scale of cheating again in 2024, I'm just telling people there's actually 0% chance that Joe Biden can win this election because Donald Trump, people need to remember, got nearly 10 million more votes or 11 million more votes in 2020 than he did in 2016. So this whole narrative that Trump was unpopular, that people hate him, it's not true based on evidence. This is a narrative that the Democrats have spun. The idea that Joe Biden got 81 million votes, more than Hillary Clinton in 2016, more than Obama at the height of his popularity during his first term, the idea that that's true is bogus. Everyone knows that in Atlanta, Georgia, when they claimed a pipe burst and it was a leaky urinal, and then they said that, hey, go home, and then they pulled out ballots and started counting. Everyone knows that that's garbage. Everyone knows we watched it with our own eyes, and they can say whatever they want about it, okay? So 2024, going into this, we know that illegals are going to be used to vote. They're giving them Social Security cards. We have motor voter where, like in California where I live, it's very easy. If you get a driver's license, which does not prove that you are a U.S. citizen, you are automatically registered to vote. All the Democrats have to do where they control the state legislatures and can change the laws and control that apparatus, all they have to do is get people on the voter rolls. They just need live ballots, so that you have, 1 million more ballots that you can go and find and send in and whatever. And once they're counted, it's over. So anyway, I just say that because nobody believes that Joe Biden can win because it's increasingly obvious that he didn't win in 2020 either. And so we're just set up for a situation where it's a powder keg. So, it's something to be aware of.
No, it is. So talk about your book. How'd you come to write your book, and tell us about it?
Yeah. So, the title is not hyperbolic, although it may seem to some people. It's America's Last Stand. Will you vote to save or destroy America in 2024? So I think it's pretty explicit. It's pretty clear. It gets the stakes across of what we're risking here in this election. And, look, one of the things I do is there's a historical aspect to it where I really do chronicle the failures of this administration, because the Biden administration is like, they're like arsonists. They keep setting so many new fires that you forget about the other one. We're just overwhelmed, and you forget all of the failures, whether it's Afghanistan and that botched withdrawal and so on and so forth. So I had a laugh when that fella got canceled by Penguin. He was going to write some book on the Biden administration, but there's no appetite for the book out there, so they pulled it. So he has nowhere to go. So in the void, thankfully, I've written a book that chronicles it and tells the truth about what a loser and louse he is. But then it's also to get people to talk about the stakes of 2024. And it's also to convince people, their neighbors, their Democrat friends. It's like a political Bible, a chapter about, the reality. So much of what you've been told, for example, about Trump isn't even true. And that which may be somewhat true, a kernel of truth that pales in comparison to the loathsome reputation and amorality of Joe Biden and other Democrats. I get into the history of the Democrat Party and racism, this myth of the big switch, climate change, which they're planning to use, of course, as the kind of final nail in the coffin. I've got 3 chapters on climate change and how that's the next step after COVID. It's the logical transition. But at the end of the day, it's a motivating book. And, you know, I am urging people to look in the mirror and get excited about the fact that you still are an American. Patriotism, not racism, is in our DNA. And we are the patriots of 20. You know, spectacular and dangerous and scary is happening right now. And we happen to be here and alive, and we're on duty. It's time to accept our responsibility and save the country.
Well, I certainly hope we can. But what do you, or, you know, Trump has been saying some rather odd things, even for him. He I don't know if you saw the other day, he tweeted out, or on his social media thing, he said, where he's mad at RFK Jr. now. And I really think he should be reaching out to RFK Jr. I think that they could form a coalition. If I were him, I would ask RFK to be his running mate. I don't know if he would do it, but I think that would bring a lot of voters over. But he's not doing that. Instead, he's alien. You know, he's just like he went after DeSantis. He basically, and you know, one of the problems with Trump that he's lost so much support is because he continues to not only support the vaccine, but claim credit for it, even though probably 99% of his followers hate that. I don't know how he does it, but he said, you know, Bobby Kennedy was fake on the vaccines, which makes no sense. And then he said that he would vote for Biden over RFK Jr. I don't know if you saw that or not. I mean, that was just a shocking thing to say. What did you think of that?
Well, I think that there's some politicking happening. So, you know, the Democrats do this a lot in the sense of, you know, for example, every time they used to run for election, even in 2020, you know, the Democrat candidate, even Bill Clinton, pretended to be very, very moderate. So they say a lot of things that they don't actually believe because they need to get elected. And then once they get into office, it's couldn't be further from what they promised on the campaign trail. Joe Biden is not moderate. He's not lunch bucket Joe. He's the most radical vessel that's ever been used to destroy the country. So for me, I look, let me say this first. I mean, RFK Jr., without a doubt, on the vaccine issue, on COVID, he is the strongest candidate on that one issue. He's been consistent on it. You know, he is. He's the king of those who, like me, even, you know, I mean, I did not get the vaccine. I've spoken out against what they did, obviously. And so I think that RFK Jr. deserves credit there. Now, when Trump sends out a message like that, he's very concerned about the fact that some people who might be, you know, leaving the Democrat Party and don't want to vote for Joe Biden, that they might vote for RFK Jr. instead. So that type of messaging, I'd vote for Biden over RFK Jr., is intended to send a message that, hey, think about this. RFK Jr. is even worse than Joe Biden. Don't even think about voting for him for a second. So there's some of that going on. Now, I understand it's not received that way by many people out there. But that's the intention of a message like that. And I think that RFK Jr., I think that he could have pulled more votes from Trump than Biden at one point. But I think with Shanahan, his VP pick, he basically ensured that he lost that support.
Yeah, it was
and that he's going to pull more votes for Biden because RFK Jr. had a really good thing going. And that VP pick really blew my mind because she's the establishment. She's, you know, the rich donor, you know, and she's radical. So he didn't do himself any favors. Now we'll see who Trump picks as a VP. Yeah,
I was going to say, I write about, I don't know if you've read my stuff. I call it the Trumpenstein Project. I think he's an actor. I'm a Trump agnostic. So people don't understand me. I get it from both sides. And I've got canceled by both sides, mostly from people who think I'm a Trumpster because I'm always defending him. But, you know, it's like, I don't care what I think about the guy. He's being prosecuted for things that were never crimes before. They're not crimes. They're ridiculous. You can't prosecute somebody for complaining about the vote. You can't prosecute somebody from some crazy, obvious lunatic that comes out of the woodwork and said he raped her in a department store and can't even remember the year it happened.
Yeah.
You can't prosecute somebody for exaggerating their wealth or their assets. Everybody does that.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. But I think that when you talk about his running mate, I would be shocked if he doesn't pick another rhino, because that's what he did. And that's what if he's learned his lesson, he won't. But I'll be shocked if he doesn't pick Marco Rubio, maybe even Nikki Haley. I don't think you're going to see Tucker Carlson or Vivek Ramaswamy or any of the names that people might send a message. But that's exactly what Bobby Kennedy did. When he did his thing, I said it was a very Trumpian move, because he floated out some good choices. Aaron Rodgers and Jesse Ventura, Rand Paul, all great, would have been great choices. But then he picks who? So I don't know what you think of that. But who would you like to see him pick?
Well, I like Byron Donalds. I think that he's better suited to run for governor in Florida right now. Tulsi Gabbard has been intriguing to me. I mean, look, I am a publicist. I'm not a special pleader per se. I've met Tulsi. She's got the it factor for sure.
Yeah.
People have to decide whether they trust her or not. I mean, that's the main thing. But look, Reagan was a convert. She's left the Democrat Party. So if she's the real deal, she could be a real force, I think, on that ticket, especially because, Trump's kind of historically had a problem with the, college educated suburban moms out there, and she could bring in that into the fold. I think I'd love to see Vivek as like a press secretary.
Yeah.
I think there's a place for a lot of these. People have talked about Dr. Ben Carson. I think that he's consistent. I think he's a good pick in terms of his mind, but he's not the most charismatic person out there. Yeah. So I do think that whoever Trump picks, they have to be like him. I mean, they cannot be rhinos. You can't have a Mike Pence situation again. We saw where that got us. So I mean, we'll see. I don't really care for the names that I've actually liked.
Yeah.
The problem is, do you take away one of your senators that you're going to need during your next 4 years out of the mix? They can be trusted. I mean, this is the problem because, just to get back to the House and Speaker Johnson, one of the things people have to realize is that, Johnson, for example, is the tip of the iceberg. So he's probably the best speaker that we can get right now. I don't say that in a positive way. I say that as a realist because we wanted Jim Jordan. Most of the conservatives did.
Yes. Yeah.
And people need to remember, not the 12 or 15 that voted against him publicly. They had a private closed door vote, secret ballot, and over 100 House Republicans voted to make sure that his eligibility ended. So over 100 in secret. So that tells you that you've got over 100 rhinos in there that don't want you to know who they are. So the idea that you're going to get somebody that's conservative, that's not going to go and bend the knee and join the uniparty, it's unrealistic because the problem isn't necessarily Johnson or McCarthy. It's the fact that everybody else in the House that has to vote to elect a speaker is the problem.
Right. And the leadership, the Republican leadership, there's always been a problem because they're always rhinos, to put it kindly, but they don't act like an opposition party. And as you noted, there was widespread opposition to Jordan because Jordan might have been different. And I think they were scared of that. And because I was saying, oh, well, maybe Jim Jordan, now that'd be possibly the most exciting. And he has flaws too. I mean, he's got, he's kind of connected a little bit to the Denny Hastert scandal, supposedly. And, I don't know, he did look the other way or something, but he's certainly said and done some good things in Congress compared to most of them. But what I'm concerned about is that you see, I just saw it's Matt Gaetz and I think Marjorie Taylor Greene and what's her name? The one that was caught on the date, I don't know.
Boebert, Lauren Boebert.
Yeah, Boebert. All these people are being primaried. They're challengers by Republicans. Obviously, they're going to be rhino challengers. So the party is still run, even though Trump is the head of a party that the establishment of that party doesn't support him. They really don't, because there's been no Trump effect. There's been some of those people, but you should start seeing, like, the party should be MAGA. They should have those kind of candidates. They're not. You should have MAGA leadership. They don't. Instead, it's the rhinos, and you have kind of outliers like Gates, and they're the ones being giving challenge. So where are are there going to be MAGA challengers challenging Lindsey Graham and all these awful rhinos that run Congress?
Yeah, I mean, the American people, conservatives too, Republicans, whatever you want to call us, that group, we've kind of just handed over our fate to, the kingmakers, to professional politicians. If we really want to see change in this country, we, the American citizen, are going to have to change our attitudes about this country, which is we are voyeurs to this kind of destruction that we're witnessing. And, if we want to exact change, then we have to do uncomfortable things like run for office. We have to get involved in local politics, which nobody wants to do. And I understand that. I mean, I go to Washington, D.C. every now and then for work, and I leave and I feel just dirty. I really do. I really do. I mean, when I hang out, because, it's all quid pro quo to some extent. But what you learn to realize when you're working in Washington, D.C. and around these people is the essence of the uniparty is that it's all about money. It really is about money and power. Money is power in many ways. But if you think about the amount of money that is stolen from the American people via taxation, obviously trillions of dollars, right? That's a lot of money. So that's like its own economy. That's more money than Apple has. That's more. The revenue stream is massive, right? It's incomparable. And so these grifters in Washington, D.C., whether they work officially for the government or they work in these other jobs, lobbyists and so on and so forth, there's all kinds of jobs that are in this ecosystem there. That's a lot of money at play. And it's taxpayer money. And so there's a lot more willingness to throw it around and give it away. And so the larger the government grows, the larger the federal government is, the more they take in taxes, the more corrupt that ecosystem becomes, because the more competition there is for your tax dollars to buy your fancy second home or third home or whatever it is. So this is really what it's about. It's about the money. R&D means nothing in Washington, D.C. So unless you have somebody who's willing to go in there and bulldoze this system, take it down, and basically restrict the financing to Washington, D.C., restrict the financing and the taxation, you're never going to defeat the beast, because it is our money that is fueling all of this.
Absolutely. And people have shown that there's no account. It's not like a checkbook where our taxes don't even appear to go to end it. That's why they're always talking about, our schools are run by property taxes. Or, if we want to have infrastructure rebuild after 60 years, we have to raise the gas tax. So basically, our taxes appear to be going to pay the interest, which is not our interest. We didn't sign on to that. So we don't even know where the money's going. It's such a mess, and it's nobody's doing anything about it. And the thing about it is that the evil side appears to win. I don't know if you've heard, but I started calling this. I came up with it. I started saying I used to call them the stupid party. Now I started calling the Republicans the Washington Generals. And this was many months ago. And I said, they're just like the Generals who used to play the Harlem Globetrotters, and they lost every game. It was always rigged against them. The audience cheered and thought it was great that the Globetrotters cheated. And that's what they've become. And since I said that, somebody told me Matt Gaetz used that analogy in Congress. Steve Bannon used it. And I think it was Tim Pool. So I don't know. Maybe they thought of it on their own or whatever. But I think that's the perfect way to describe them now. They are really a laughingstock. They don't stand up. I mean, look at what's happening now. I mean, this guy, they can't figure out a way. Well, they couldn't when Trump was in office. They couldn't figure out a way with his Justice Department to process. I mean, you had Hillary Clinton out there that destroyed 30,000 emails or whatever it was. That on the record admitted she used bleach and the sledgehammer to be. I mean, how does that not translate into a prosecutable offense? But Trump couldn't do it with his own Justice Department. I mean, I don't even understand that, but nobody was prosecuted. You have the Hunter Biden, you have Joe Biden on videotape saying, I got the prosecutor fired in Ukraine. and they impeached Trump for some stupid phone conversation he had with Zelensky. I mean, to me, they're the Washington Generals. I don't know what you think of it.
Well, they are the Washington Generals. They don't actually have any real power. The real power is not even held by the elected officials. The real power is held by permanent bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. It's held by people that work for the EPA. It's held by, obviously, the FBI. It's held by all of these individuals who you've never heard of and you didn't vote to represent you. They're appointments, and they stay there forever. And they get circulated around from this department to that department. They can go from one Republican president to a Democrat president and find work because there is a uniparty set up. And people fear these individuals. So, I mean, people need to understand blackmail's real. That's something that happens. And you have the most amoral, evil people that are in the positions of real power. And so this is how it works. I mean, it is a mob. I mean, think about how the mob operates. They have their muscle. They come in, they make threats. They insist that you conform. And this is what happens in Washington. When you see somebody that you think is a staunch conservative that makes a decision or votes in a way that is entirely antithetical to what they've said and what they stand for, it's one of those reasons. Somebody talked to them behind closed doors. Somebody threatened them, whether it was blackmail, whether it was, you name it. They're going to fundraise against you and you're not going to win anymore. I mean, there's a million different reasons this happens, but it is a mob. And so, this is why Trump is such a special person, because he does not give a crap. He really didn't. Now, look, there were mistakes made, but there were mistakes that anyone would make in terms of personnel selection and things like that. Donald Trump didn't come from government. So he had to rely on other people to, make recommendations. So you get Mike Pompeo. You go down the list. There's so many people there.
Everybody.
Yep. Yeah.
John Bolton, Nikki Haley, everything. But would you agree, though, that if we buy that excuse, I don't buy that excuse, but if we buy that excuse that he made so many bad selections because he was naive and he trusted people and all that, would you agree that this time that can't be an excuse? And his running mate would be the first indication of that. He picks another Mike Pence, which was an awful pick at the time. If he picks another Mike Pence, to me, it shows he's meant nothing, but I think he has to pick an outsider, a real person that's not in the uniparty, to send a message that, okay, this time it's going to be different.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he has to be extended that grace, if you will. But if you're going to extend it to him, you have to hold him accountable. So, yeah, I mean, there are big stakes for him and his next administration. I think that guys like Kash Patel and people like that are great. I think there were some gems that came out of the administration. But yeah, he's got to be careful to who he listens to. It looks like he's making some of those decisions that are improvements thus far. I love what he's doing, meeting with world leaders constantly right now, in between having to sit there for this ridiculous criminal prosecution of no crime. But it's an incredible thing to behold. But look, I just think it's a fine line, because he's taken so many slings and arrows for us. He really has, and he needs our support. People think he's just like not a human being, because let's be honest, no human being could survive what he's already survived. I mean, if you took one of these cases and did that to me, I wouldn't be here with you, Don. I'd be curled up crying somewhere, probably, crying, "Uncle, leave me alone." And he's not doing any of that. He's just, I've never seen anything like it in my life. It's remarkable, and he deserves, credit for that. And so, I support him. I'm very concerned about those things going forward. I have an eye on those. I mean, honestly, I probably have been a publicist for many of the people that he's considering right now. So,
yes, yeah.
We'll see.
Well,
Maybe I'll go work for the administration. I don't know.
Well, Tulsi Gabbard did allegedly. They said she told RFK she had no interest, and so maybe she is, at least hoping maybe for a place in the Trump administration. But what do you see? We're almost out of time, but what do you? Because I don't know it. When Trump was elected in 2016, I never saw that coming. I would have never thought in a million more years that they would let him beat the queen of corruption. But so I don't know what they have planned, and I never thought Joe Biden would be the guy they selected in 2020. Others Democrats, so they clearly I'm not in their meetings, but Trump is being prosecuted for all these things. As I said, I think he's a part of this. I don't know, but I can't imagine they're going to put him in prison. I don't know what's happening here. Do you really think will they be that desperate? How do you see this all playing out?
Look, I mean, I have a strong feeling that Trump is the real deal. I don't think that any of this is staged. I think it's intentional. They have hated him since 2016 because he wasn't supposed to win. No one expected it. He surprised them. They could not do what they did in 2020 because they expected to win. 99.9% chance Hillary Clinton wins. So we caught them off guard. That's what happened. And immediately they went after him. That people have to remember 2016, what they did to him with a coup, the Trump-Russia collusion setup, the quid pro quo. He was looking into Joe Biden. And what do? They tried to cut his head off because he was too close to what had actually happened. And so I think that he is the real deal. And I think that they will move mountains to prevent his election. We have to show up. Look, it's like, I mean, I don't believe in this, but some people say, hey, what, in terms of believing in God or Jesus or something like that. Well, hey, I'd rather go to heaven than hell. So what the heck? I might as well just believe, because the alternative sucks anyway. I would almost adopt that for people right now. I mean, we have to give him the chance because if he's not the real deal, we're screwed. Basically kiss the country goodbye. But if he is the real deal, he gives us a very good chance of saving the country and turning things around. Now, he's not Jesus Christ. And we have to look in the mirror and see the savior of the country. It's not just Donald Trump, but it's going to be a lifelong endeavor to correct things. And it's understanding the principles of this country and thinking about what the role of government is and becoming confident, not laying down while these lunatic Democrats trying to make you feel guilty or tell you that Trump sucks when Joe Biden, had showers with his daughter.
Yeah, exactly. And we know that. And what do? They throw the woman who found the diary and tried to sell it in jail. I mean, this is where we're at. But so I want to give you the last. Again, this is however you look at it. One thing you said I completely agree with, and that is that Trump he's the opposition, whether he's legitimate or not. That's the opposition. 70 to 80 million people believe in him to the point where they're going to vote for him probably. So what happens after that, I don't know, because Trump is almost he's 80, he's 77 or whatever. He can't go on that much longer. He has a lot of energy, but at some point, they're going to say, who's the heir apparent? I don't know, because people are believing in this in one man, and we'll see if he can do it. But we're just about out of time. So tell people where they can find your book and anything else you want to close with.
Well, sure. Look, America's Last Stand, Will You Vote to Save or Destroy America in 2024? That's the book. Best place to get it's Amazon.com. It's Kindle, paperback, audiobook as well. And it's an important book. I mean, I wrote it for, the American people at this time in our history, to give people the facts and information they need, the arguments, the historical analysis and everything else. So, I mean, hopefully that can be used in some way to help convince other people and give you encouragement, because I believe in this country still, and I'm not giving up. And I'm 37. I'll be here fighting until the day I die.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, Drew Allen. Thanks so much for joining us. Good luck with your book, and I'm sure I'll be contacting you again, maybe to have some of the people you represent on the show.
Anytime. I appreciate you, Don.
Take care. Thanks, Drew. Okay, we have our second guest. And I was hoping I'd get to see Brian. He's still got the logo on there. The mysterious Brian D. Roberts, who has become a good friend of mine now. I do a show with him every Saturday where we kind of do an MST 3000 kind of spoof on some great documentaries like Loose Change. But Brian Roberts is the tech producer for the Next News Network and Slightly Offensive. He's a Ron Paul supporter and general truth seeker. Brian, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me, Donald.
Well, great. No, so we're going from Trump. That was what you saw in the first hour, folks. Again, was that this is, and I know my audience is. That's why I couldn't put many of the comments on the screen, because my audience is now really. I don't think there's anybody, at least in the chat room, that still supports Trump at all. So, but this guy was, hopefully, he represents millions of people that
he does.
That still support Trump. I mean, the January 6th people, I have almost all of them that I've had on the show, including Ashley Babbitt's mother. They still love Trump. I find it hard to understand. But anyway, tell us when you how you can now you've been around doing apparently you have quite the record. We talk about Sandy Hook and things like that. When did you get started down these forbidden paths?
Uh, Definitely after, I'd always, looked at things like JFK, heard many people talk about that when I was really young. When, I can't think of his name now. Ross Perot
Ross Perot, yeah. Sure.
was running for president. I was a huge supporter of his. I liked his ideas. I'm like, yeah, why are we sending all these jobs off to Mexico? What are we going to do for jobs?
Absolutely.
Just made sense. And from there, we led into Waco and Ruby Ridge, which were also popped up on my radar. The Minutemen popped up on my radar because I was always fascinated with broadcasting. It didn't matter what kind, whether it was radio, television, internet streaming. I loved it all. And when so I got a job with a video production company, and I had a lot of free time on my hands because I only worked like 30 seconds every 10 minutes. Great job. So I got to consume a lot of media.
I had a job like that too.
So I was all over the OJ thing. Seeing what was going on with that. Wanted to get more information, so the internet was just kind of there. Most people were probably using CompuServe or America Online,
sure,
or something like that.
28 K modems and ding, 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 and knocking you off and stuff. Sure.
Yeah. So I found websites. I never got stuck on just one of those platforms like AOL. Once you learned what it was and that, hey, this is just a facade you're looking at. It's not really the internet. The internet's really over here. I started going over there and I was, able to find stuff like crime scene photos from Nicole and the other gentleman. I forgot his name now. Saw all the news from the militia, not the militiamen, but the Montana Freemen.
Yes.
Dove into that because I thought it was interesting. I'm like, okay, so they got this idea that they can somehow rescind their, whatever and get money from the IRS. What is it that they're actually doing? Which we learned about that a couple weeks back. Went from that to 9/11, which, I'm watching these buildings turn into dust and I'm just like, no way. That just don't happen. I don't care what you say, it don't happen.
Right.
And this, but because of these topics I would talk about, it ended up causing me to lose the job that I had.
Oh boy.
Which was is okay with me. It was time for me to go anyway. I didn't really I liked what I was doing, as in the production. I just didn't like what was being produced.
Right.
So from there, I met up with a man by the name of Sam Matero, who worked with Gary Franchi and Aaron Russo on his Restore the Republic program. Sam set up a conference in Arizona. It was a Ron Paul rally, freedom event. We had Ben Steele there. We had Paymon Montehade there. We had Joe Bannister. We had Republic Broadcasting Network was there in support. Ernest Hancock was there. I can't think of all the other people that were there, but it was a big event. Nice big a full day conference. Different speakers talking on different topics, from the IRS to other types of conspiracy theory or whatever you want to call it. It was also, like I said, it was a Ron Paul rally, and I was there again behind the scenes, helping to stream it on the internet. This was early days of streaming. We were also there to record B-roll of the different the protest, or not protest, but rally, I guess you would say it, on the street. Again, this was 2008. This is when Ron Paul campaign was in full effect. Everybody who was a freedom lover was on it, creating their own signs, getting out there, hanging them up, just doing spontaneous Ron Paul rallies on the streets of America, etc. And then we went from there to creating to meeting with another gentleman who created a magazine. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it, called Republic Magazine. Have you ever heard of that?
I think so. It sounds familiar.
This was also backed by Gary and
Sure.
and Restore the Republic. It was a magazine that we created to the very first magazine was to promote Ron Paul, and we had great topics, different stories in it, and then from there Gary started his what's called his reality report. Gave him advice a little bit on it. That kind of tilted away after the Ron Paul thing, kind of died out. Unfortunately, meetups started drying up. People stopped frequenting the.
That was kind of big at one time. I remember.
It was huge.
Yeah.
And people just kind of started, I guess, going back to sleep. I guess you would say.
Yeah.
And stopped ignoring. But we went on from Arizona to visit Jekyll Island. We went there with a number of other freedom fighters, I guess you would call them. Again, behind the scenes, not a part there, but not a part. Just observing, documenting, filming. This was put on by We the People Foundation. Bob Schultz. There it is. Some of these names take a minute to come back up.
Sure.
Bob Schultz helped put this on. Alex Jones was invited, but he didn't. I guess he decided it wasn't special enough or worth his time, so he didn't come. But it was a gathering of, like I said, as many of the quote unquote heads of the freedom movement as they could possibly get together, where they were going to petition the government for redress of grievances. This ended up spawning off in the next year, in 2009, to a conference that was known as the Continental Congress of 2009. Have you heard about this one?
No, I did not hear that.
This was also put together by Bob Schultz, where they did. He wanted to do it just like the founders did it. So every state had a representative. Anybody could have been a representative of a state. All they had to do was know about it and sign up for it. And they had a giant conference where just like the original Continental Congress, where they said, okay, we're going to have this is up for vote. Are we going to put this into what we're redressing or not? And they would vote on it, and it was like I want to say it was like a 3 or 4 day event. It was in Chicago. We were there to, again, film it, stream it, record it. You can find copies of it if you search for Continental Congress 09. And this was, so when that ended, things died down even more, because this was already 2009. Obama's already president and doing what he's doing, and there was nothing else of major, at least in my eyes, there was nothing else really significant, newsworthy up until Sandy Hook.
Yeah, then you had that, and I'm fascinated because you seem like you have quite a connection there. What kind of work did you do in Sandy Hook?
I never went to Sandy Hook, but again, I'm a producer. I like to find talent, bring them together, and put things together. And so I managed to get into the group of how do I say them? The most prominent of the Sandy Hook event anomalies, noticers. Let's call them noticers. That's a good word.
Insane media. There was insane media.
There was insane media. There was Tyranny News Network up north of the 49th, Max Malone, but he still don't know who I am, so that's okay. That's an inside joke.
I could never get a hold of any of the guys. That's that guy Swan Song that was with Insane Media. I think
I talked to him just yesterday.
Oh wow! I would love to have him on the show because I really admire the work he did on.
I'll ask him, but I was hesitant to ask him if he wanted to join us. We're not doing it this weekend.
Okay.
We're going to actually watch the Obama deception, which in my opinion should actually be called the Bilderberg documentary.
Okay.
It's like the whole first half of it is just, Alex at the Bilderberg meeting in, what was that, 2007, 2008, when it was in Chantilly, Virginia.
Yeah. Very near me. Yeah. Yep.
But I will ask Swan to join us to get some more intake. But again, so I'm not only am I listening to what these people have to say, I'm also trying to not necessarily debunk, but authenticate what they're saying as well.
Sure. And we talked about, was it I've already forgotten his name. Brandon, the guy is in prison for J6 now. The guy did great. What was his name? Brandon Hunt. Brandon Hunt. Yeah. He did one of the most fascinating things. He went to Sandy Hook, or went to Newtown, and he filmed before they demolished the school. He filmed the barbed wire around it, and and he talked to Gene Rosen on audio. There's just a fascinating video, and you can see. I know you've seen it. There's like a foreboding sense. It's almost like Stranger Things or something. Like you think, okay, something's in the air. These guys may be in danger here. And then he winds up in prison for January 6th. I don't know. Is that a coincidence?
I don't know if it's a coincidence, but I do know that two other people went to Sandy Hook as well, and that was Sophia Smallstorm.
Yes.
And when she went, she got a welcome because they didn't see her coming. Wolfgang Halbig also visited Sandy Hook.
Yes, yeah.
And he was met with resistance every step he took in the place.
Yes, yeah.
So,
I'd love to have.
Here's what really aggravates me now, and it's after Alex got sued. They wanted to peg him as the quote unquote Sandy Hook guy. He was never the Sandy Hook guy. He did what he does best. He picked it low hanging fruit, things that didn't exist, like green screens. No, they don't have to take a green screen for this.
Yeah.
If you really want to know what happened on that event, unfortunately, you have to read the documents that they have released. And I'm not talking about just the statement. I'm talking about the jumbled freaking mess that me and all the other people within the Sandy Hook research community has done. We've tore through every single one of those, every single one of the PDFs, every single one of the videos, every single one of the audio calls, or 911 calls which they fought to keep from releasing, which I wonder why. Oh, I know why. Yeah. Good old Robbie Parker called 911, which we don't know why, because he should have been at work. He shouldn't be. There's no reason for you to be calling 911, but that gets looked over by other low hanging fruit of whether or not a lady said that I hear a rumor it's fake is what she actually said or not. So
well, we're joined by Chris Graves. I don't know if you heard of Chris Graves, but he's a good podcaster himself, and he's been just a great researcher for me. He helps me out a lot, and he knows a lot about Sandy Hook. He probably has questions about that and maybe some other things. Chris, are you familiar with Brian? Do you have any questions for him?
I'm only familiar with Brian through you, Don. I actually had a question. Brian, have you ever heard of he was a Monsignor?
Monsignor Weiss?
Yes. A laughing Monsignor.
There you go. What do you know about this gentleman, quote unquote, if anything?
What I know comes from Professor Doom. If you're aware of him, he was also a part of our little group.
Yes.
He did a video where there was a young man speaking about was speaking to the news media about that day, saying that they were in the middle of morning mass and this was at St. Rose of Lima when Monsieur Weiss was supposedly given that sermon. But the problem is that morning mass was at the same time that the event was happening at Sandy Hook, but yet we have photos of him there during that time. So the question arose of why was he there when he's supposed to have been given this mass? Yeah. I can't really confirm or deny it, but Professor Doom's done pretty good research on things. I've called out people before. There was an image going around of a young boy on a taxi cab.
Yeah,
and I'm not going to say who was promoting it because I'm friends with him and I like him. but I told him, I'm like, no, that's not the boy who shall not be named. That's not him. It's not him. So don't, there are plenty of other things that we can look at.
Exactly. Yes.
To prove that we've been lied to other than that.
Look at the helicopter footage.
Well, can I ask you one thing about actually with the St. Rose of Lima thing?
Uh-huh.
There were a few articles from days after the event or the incident, whatever, where the police were called to St. Rose of Lima because someone was either there or they were threatening to shoot people at St. Rose of Lima. And what basically happened was after the fact, we didn't really hear much about it afterwards, but there was an article out of Britain, and I'm trying to remember the publication, maybe the Enterprise or the Guardian or something, where they claimed that there was something removed from St. Rose of Lima under a blue tarp, and they never explained what was removed from that area. Did you ever come across that? Because that was a very shady thing, where it was almost like a copycat Adam Lanza had made, either called or someone actually showed up and was arrested.
I can't
finish the job, quote unquote. Sorry.
I don't. I think I kind of remember something about that, but the one thing, the only main connection I know of with St. Rose of Lima and Sandy Hook is the fact that CNN showed what was supposed to be aerial footage of police officers running toward St. Rose of Lima with Sandy Hook banner down below.
That's right.
And the aerial footage, showed it didn't show anything going on there. It looked like a day at the park. There was no pandemonium. That's what I was most fascinated by, the helicopter footage from local news coverage. They did. Mm-hmm. If you looked at that, you would not know any event. There was a triage set up. No one was there. A couple of people walking around aimlessly. The people, cars parked haphazardly, like trying to block the way. It made no sense. I mean, that's what I would have concentrated on if I was arguing it.
Oh, we concentrated on that a good bit, of course. There were, you can definitely tell that the people were walking in and I don't want to say circle, but it was definitely a path that they were following. They would go in one door, out the other.
Do you think that was on purpose? Because it's supposed to put out these weird Twilight Zone like images? Because I know the video you're talking about. Because Alex Jones, I agree with you. He did not cover it himself that much at the time, but he did say during his deposition, I forget for which case, but he did mention that thing, the walking in circles video, and it's a very odd video, and it makes me think that. Yeah. A lot of this stuff was put out on purpose to kind of entrap researchers.
I don't necessarily think that the aerial footage was put out on purpose. I don't understand why they would want to put that out on purpose.
No,
but
you know
then,
what I mean? Like,
again, they put out the Sandy Hook official report on purpose.
Yeah.
We've got all of this information in there, all of the different discrepancies, the DNA tests. This is where the majority of all the work Swan Song did, and he did amazing work. It all comes from the official reports.
Well, he did great work, but and I'm trying to, because I'm writing. Chris knows, and Chris gave me a lot of the research for these, a lot of these shootings and everything. I have questions about it. First and foremost, Sandy Hook, but I'm really intrigued by, and it's hard to find a real legitimate source for it about that. So many of these properties of the people involved were granted to them, given to them on Christmas Day. And again, I've been a licensed realtor since 1985. You don't do the businesses are closed on Christmas Day. That makes no sense. Do we have a legitimate source for that? Because to me, that's a smoking gun. I don't know what it means, but it certainly means something.
The legitimate source is so to speak, it would be the not Spoko, but the realty type websites, because that's where this information comes from. When I believe it was Sherry who did that research, she used Zillow type websites to see how much a house was worth, how much it sold for, and there was a number of houses all on the same street that on this particular website said that they sold for $1. I don't know if I would. I don't know if I would necessarily, lean on that information. I would lean on it more if it actually came from, the state in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Well, Brian, I'll give
Yes,
you
sir.
one. I'll ask you one right here. The Newtown Bee.
Newtown B.
They did an interview,
Uh-huh.
supposedly with a Dawn Hopsprung, the
Correct.
principal,
Right.
after she was the first person killed, apparently.
Correct. That was QK Ultra's work.
Okay.
He found that and archived it. I don't know if that video still exists, showing the website, showing the article. But the Newtown Bee was definitely heavily involved in covering this event. I'll use those words. I'm not going to use the words participate, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
I don't want to get Alex Jones, but then again, I have nothing to take, so they can bite. They can bite it. He did the work on that, and yeah, that's out there. A lot of these videos you can find on my Rebel channel, which is things to find online, or things you find online is the name of the channel. I got a bunch of that stuff, man. I got the whole helicopter footage, so you can watch it raw and not edited. I've got the bunch of Gene Rosen interviews. I think he even got the Spanish one.
Spanish
on
one.
there.
You know about that? Oh yeah.
He had song parodies about him, if you remember.
Oh, Creepy Gene. Yeah, Creepy Gene by the Monkees.
Creepy, yes. Creepy,
That's right.
Creepy Gene was great. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
good.
Jeff C. did a whole bunch of videos on on Gene Rosen. He was definitely the one that brought a lot of that stuff to light. The creepiness, the idea that this man finds 6 children sitting in a circle on his lawn. They were sitting so nice. I thought they were doing a skit.
So I
invited
his
them
story 4 times within 2 hours on different interviews.
And the bus driver, who was male or female, depending on the story, dropped them off. Why'd they drop them off at his house? The firehouse is right there.
Now, there is a 911 call that kind of corroborates that. It was from a lady who calls 911 and says that she sees 6 children running up the street. But my question is, Gene, why didn't you call 911 before bringing them into your house and giving them toys to play with
right.
and whatnot. I mean, it's a little creepy.
Because he was still rehearsing in the backyard with that other video that we all saw.
That's true too. And that one's on the channel as well. If anybody wants to see that one.
He gave one at least one in Spanish too. He's impressive.
Yes, to Univision. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he's
como estás? Yeah.
What happened to Red Silver J or Team Wake Up? That I loved that guy, and he never answered me.
He was never really a team player. He was more independent on his own. He had been invited to the hangouts that we were doing. We were using Google Hangouts at the time. So he was invited to the hangouts numerous times, but he wanted to be independent, fully independent, I guess. What's happened to him, I have no idea. After a period of time, people can only beat that horse for so long before they got to do something different. Because if you don't, then
Well, he wouldn't. He was on YouTube, so obviously he wouldn't be allowed to.
He wouldn't even be allowed to speak.
Have you heard anything else about the other suspects that were either apprehended that day or got away, like the purple maroon van with the guys dressed up as nuns that were shooting out the windows towards the Newtown cops on the audio, the police audio?
I've heard about that. The only person I know of or officially reported being arrested he was supposed to be a father coming to the school to help his daughter make gingerbread houses, but why he was in black and camo, that's in the woods. That's a whole nother question.
Yeah.
And
also, I think another suspect that was caught was actually a neighbor of Adam Lanza, supposedly, and I think the same neighbor, his nephew, became a serial killer.
Oh boy!
And his name is escaping me right now.
Oh yeah, I know you're talking about. I can't think.
But it was he was literally a neighbor of Adam Lanza. Which, by the way, why did they have to bulldoze his house? I could see Sandy Hook, the school itself.
Yeah.
But why did they have to a perfectly good, a regular house? They bulldozed that too.
Your guess is as good as mine. If I'm guessing, they did it to hide any possibility of forensic evidence.
Like, was the father that they claimed was dead in New Jersey? Was he hiding out? Allegedly? Like, I have no idea.
Yeah, they reported finding a body there. There's so much stuff there. I mean, when they visited his brother, is it Ryan Lanza? Because they got him mixed up at first. They visited his apartment, and his girlfriend was in there, and they knocked for I don't know how long, and the girlfriend just never answered the door, even though they said it was the police, because she said she thought it was FedEx. It's like
it was the girlfriend and his friend.
Yeah, it's like, really, the police bang at your door and you don't answer it. I mean, I don't know.
Adam had his driver's license for some reason. Ryan's driver's license was on the body.
That was what was reported. Yes.
Also reported that the killer had 2 pistols. That were used, right? Or 4 pistols, actually, I think.
There's so many. And that's
it was definitely more than one. But again, if you read the official documents, you'll find out that they state that Adam Lanza's DNA does not appear on any of these weapons.
Yeah, exactly. And also the children, the eyewitness, the children's witness statements said it was a guy with a beard and like a green army hat too, right?
Don't know anything about that one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. They apparently some of the witness statements, it was a guy with a beard, a big full beard, and an army green olive drab like army hat. It goes all over the place, man. Like, and then all the children that are in the bathroom, like the teacher
Caitlin Roig.
Yes. Yeah. Oh,
Dr. Oz. That is.
Yes.
She appeared on Dr. Oz. That video is also on the channel. If you guys want to watch it, he brings out a bathroom that's supposed to mimic the bathroom that she shoved herself and 20 first graders into, and And go ahead and watch it, and then tell me that it happened, and and I'll tell you I'm a female.
You're a female. And there was also the teacher that had a bullet in her car that was.
Yes, it came from the inside. Yes, yeah. That
Don, also before we go, like, just tell everybody about what you also heard, the interview with the nurse.
Oh yeah, well, you had she was a God, I'm getting terrible on names.
Sally something, right? Sally.
No, the nurse was Sally. Yeah, but the reporter. Oh God, I can't. She's a local reporter here, and I've contacted her a few times before. And the nurse told her a long, a detailed story. She got on the air, and she got her. It was like a exclusive for her, and she was I just had a nurse with Nurse Sally, whatever her name was, and she talked about how Nancy Lanz's was a beloved kindergarten teacher at the school,
and had been for 15 years.
Yeah, so I emailed her. And I said, what's up with that? Did you wonder about that? And she said, I did wonder about that. But then she got into a nonsensical explanation. Things were chaotic, and said there was no conspiracy. I didn't say anything about that, but she obviously read right through what I was saying. I thought, that's what I've said. That should be, emboldened outside every newsroom in America. There was no conspiracy, because that's the foundation of their belief. There's no conspiracy. But that was that was actually the first thing that I was introduced to you, Don, on Popeye, Down the Rabbit Hole with Popeye. Yeah.
You had brought that up in the Laughing Monsignor, and I was able to find, at least with Robert Weiss, transcript of him talking to MSNBC and kind of giggling about the dead children and everything. It's just, these are the things that's why, when
that's nothing compared to having the state spokesman who tells you that any information about this event is coming from these microphones and us, and doesn't even know where the killer was found.
And that we will prosecute too if you continue with this line of questioning.
He was asked where the killer was found, and he said in the hallway. Adam Lanza was found in classroom 8.
Yeah. Her name was Andrea McCarran. That's the reporter's name. But we were all when Alex Jones went on trial. That could have been a great thing, because to be able to bring up this kind of evidence on the stand, it was a combination of Alex Jones and his lawyers, and however legit, however much a part of this he was or whatever, but he also wasn't really allowed. Apparently they weren't allowed to argue the First Amendment, which is basis of his defense.
That's because the judge found him guilty.
Yeah.
The judge found him guilty by default because they claimed that they were not being forthcoming with discovery.
It's the exact same thing that happened with almost every one of Trump's trials. The judge found him guilty before. It's just a question of how much you have to pay. So these are troubling, and I feel a little antsy just talking about Sandy Hook. Now, I've had Wolfgang Halbig on my show once. He never answered anymore. And I had his old attorney, Kay, somebody that was on the show once. And
I connected you two, and she actually brought forth the fact that the sign that everyone is pointing out that please check in is actually Department of Homeland Security.
FOIA, both of those FOIA hearings are also on the channel if you guys want to go and watch them. Both of the Wolfgang Halbig. We were there. We weren't there physically, but our Sandy Hook group was there via a laptop and Google Hangouts.
Well, how did your Sandy Hook group and all these people react? Swan Song, all the people like that did so much good work. You yourself, how did they react to? Because first of all, the fact that he was prosecuted to begin with, Alex, that there was this ridiculous prosecution, declared guilty beforehand, but to see what happened, to have him found guilty over and over again, to be ordered to pay some absurd, almost the largest legal settlement in the history of this country,
like $1 trillion or something.
An impossible amount. I mean, how did that? And then you have Brendan Hunt, somebody like him who's unrelated, but still, he's gone to prison for January 4th. So. This is scary stuff. Like I said, I always make sure I don't know what happened. I'm not making any representation. I'm not even talking about the parents. I'm just saying there are lots of questions here. But what did your?
But you're not allowed to ask questions about Sandy Hook.
Apparently
it's almost like the Holocaust. And what we saw actually coming, what was a new wave of censorship. And this wave of censorship was going to involve social media networks. It was going to involve, actually suing people. We saw it coming. When he who will not be named started a network to go after people who were questioning or using images of his child, even though an image of his child was used in a shooting in Pakistan.
Right.
I will say that there were members of that group who did contact him, because he kind of said contact him, and they would call him and talk to him. He released what was supposed to be a death certificate of his son, but this was no state issued death certificate. It was something completely different. I verified that by calling my state Surgeon General and asking him questions about this particular type of document. I know it's different in my state, but he told me, yes, the same type of document exists, and it's just for internal paperwork. And I don't know why he would send out a piece of internal paperwork but it's those kinds of things that really spurred the movement on even more.
Well, this same individual that will not be named, he went on CBS News, and he had Hollywood special effects people put a latex mask on him to protect his identity, which was really ironic, because if you Googled this individual and his child, like, there were pictures of him and his child like all over the internet at a certain point. So why would he need the special effects masks to hide his identity?
I don't know anything about that. Honestly, sorry.
No, it's fine. No, it's stuff I sent to Dawn over the years, but
no, and I just, like I said, I feel uncomfortable even just talking about him, because this is what happened.
I think that was the whole point, and the whole point of Alex Jones's trial.
Yes, exactly.
As I point out about that, the whole reason for the trial was actually not even Alex Jones, if I remember correctly. It was Owen Schroyer going on the air and having a legitimate question about a parent that made the claim that he was holding his dead child in his arms with a bullet hole in his head.
Correct.
And yet Wayne Carver, the medical examiner who has since passed away, made the claim actually on the deposition video for one of Alex Jones's trials, that the parents never came in contact with their children. So wouldn't that make the whole trial null and void? I'm not a lawyer, but
again, he was found guilty by default, so logic is gone. He's already guilty. There's no arguments. He's guilty. How much does he pay? And we make him look as bad as we can, so that the jury and gives up millions of dollars, because they don't even know their own jury rights.
And then the parents that were suing him give him Alex Jones an aspirin and a water, and they're kind of like shooting the breeze with him. And there's that footage is online too.
And it sets a terrible precedent, because even if however I incorporate the Sandy Hook and Boston bombing and Batman Aurora shooting, Gabby Giffords, all these ones that
Vegas too later on.
They're all because these are all have similar. They're all basically the same questions we're asking. But the narrative doesn't make sense. There are lots of anomalies here, but it's scary, especially with Sandy Hook, because I don't know when I send that to the publisher eventually when I get it done. I don't know if they're going to publish it, because I don't know. I don't know that you're allowed to ask questions about. You
might get Fetzered.
Yeah, and I don't. And Fetzer, I know Fetzer too. I've spoken at his conference a couple times, and I know I'm going back to the JFK assassination days. But
But according to Alex Jones, he's a nut job, and so is Wolfgang, and that really makes me mad. It really makes me mad.
Threw them under the bus,
because Wolfgang actually has credentials. He's not lying about being a Florida State Trooper. He's not lying about being appointed by Jeb Bush to the security, whatever, for schools. He's not lying about these things. But
it's
here
just
we are.
And he was arrested in the middle of the night, like Roger Stone.
Yeah. Yeah. Wolfgang is, and I feel awful. I'd love to get him back on the show. And apparently he's still talking to me, but he hasn't answered me. I don't know. I thought the interview went well.
He's in the middle of a lawsuit against, I believe, the Newtown Police. Or some kind of police organization.
Well, and he's been sued once, so it's Fetzer. So these guys, they saw what happened to Alex Jones, so it's scary, but it should be. I've tried to tell people that cheer this on, you hate Alex Jones or whatever. Same thing with Trump. You're cheering this on, but this opens the door. Something like 9/11, especially. What if they set a precedent? The 9/11 family members could sue anybody. They could sue Richard Gage, people like that.
From what I understand, I think they're trying to do that now.
The precedent has been set.
And let's remember, a lot of these weird anomaly kind of witnesses or family member type stuff goes back to 9/11. Because we found a bunch of witness statements from different people over the years that just don't add up. Like people that were on the flights and things, like just weird anomalies. Like no one showed up for Flight 93 families. Like for when they were going to land.
The two women, the tearful, dramatic story, the two women, they always flew together. They've been doing it for decades. On that day, they couldn't get a seat together. And the same breath, they're telling you how each airplane was like 20 to 30% capacity.
20% full, yeah.
But they couldn't get a seat together. No reporter says, wait a minute.
The little boy on Flight 77, that his father worked at the Pentagon and decided to take the day off to go golfing. The area where his office was right where Flight 77 supposedly hit, and it would have been killed. He tells his son, "Don't worry, son. We all." I'm paraphrasing here, but don't worry. We all eventually die. Why would he tell his son that?
That's a good thing to tell him when he's
he's a little boy going on a field trip.
Yeah. Well, we'll have the American Memory Hole, my book that's coming out in August. I'll have a lot of this stuff, and Chris helped me with a lot of the research on 9/11 and everything.
Can I ask one more thing? Like, because Brian is part of the research community with Sandy Hook. Were you able to come up with anything, or even familiar with the photographer that ended up drowned in a pond?
Are you talking about the photographer that was getting yelled at by the Sandy Hook parent?
Well, I believe he was taking photographs and video footage of the training drill that was passed off as being like in real time. Hook. Yeah. And
information is hard to find about it. Yeah.
He they found his body. He drowned after going on a bike ride.
I know what you're talking about. I think he was also a cyclist, maybe.
Yeah.
If that was right. I don't know a whole lot about it.
Okay.
But I have heard about it. I try not to make real loose connections. I don't like. I like going for the meat, the real meat, and that constitutes stuff like Robbie Parker calling 911. Right. Not him crying and or pretending to or laughing and whatever.
Oh yeah,
him calling 911.
I'm not making loose connections. It's just these weird things that I remember that no one ever brought up ever again. And
Chris Askier 64 is talking about all the celebs that James Woods, Mark Wahlberg, Rob Lowe, Seth MacFarlane, tons of celebrities that canceled. First of all, I don't know why were there so many celebrities in Boston? I mean, and they canceled at the last minute. So I mean, I've got him in the book.
Mark Wahlberg, Seth MacFarlane of Family Guy. He went on for years and said that he was waiting in the lounge at Logan Airport and that he missed Flight 11 by 10 minutes. And later on in the 9/11 Commission report, you find out that Seth MacFarlane's story that he was telling the press for years was not the case, because his agent went in about 3 hours before Flight 11 was boarding. His agent or manager canceled his ticket 3 hours beforehand. Why was he continuing to tell the story to the press?
Because it sounds good.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, just the idea that all these celebrities like missed their flights or like their destiny or whatever on 9/11. It's like he continues to this day, I believe, to say that he missed Flight 11 when his ticket was canceled hours in advance.
Because it sounds good and it gives him more clout and it gives people stuff to relevancy.
And Julia Child, she was supposed to be on Flight 11 apparently too.
Yeah, there were tons of it. It's amazing when you when you look at it, I'll have all that in American memory. And Chris did a lot to get that kind of research. Well, one of the, again, this is kind of this crazy thing you see with these people. One of the people they interviewed, that they happened to interview on the streets of New York afterwards was Rachel. I can't remember, but she ended up being one of Tiger Woods' mistresses, 15 years later or whatever, or less than that. I mean, what are the odds of that? That's who they happen to talk to. Somebody, it's like some of these future celebrities appearing in the dating game. I mean, it looks like it's the same kind of concept. But
I hope Brendan Hunt gets out. I think he's still behind bars. I believe he put out the most comprehensive, I think, documentary on Kurt Cobain's murder, and I do say murder. Years before Soaked in Bleach was out and everything like that, and I actually came to know him through that. And then later on, his website is actually whoever is in charge of scrubbing websites out there. They didn't do a good job of this, because I think I even sent that to you a while ago, Don. But all of his footage of going to Sandy Hook and videotaping around the fence when it was fenced off and everything is still, and even still photos of them under the cover of darkness taking out the rifle out of the trunk out of Adam Lanza's trunk. Apparently, is on
the channel.
Yeah, it's on his Brendan Hunt's website on the Wayback Machine. I hate saying that because maybe it will officially disappear now, but it's still out there for people if you want to find it. He did a lot of good work with that, and he's paying the price, I think, not because of January 6th, but I think it was because of his work with that. Well,
they claim, I read, they claim he
made some threats.
Made some threats to, I don't know. Who knows? If he was, it was pretty stupid to do that, but I don't know. But it still is kind of convenient. But well, I want to make sure, Brian, we talk about anything because I'm kind of zoned into Sandy Hook and Chris is. And also, before I forget, Karen Carpenter asked, and people have asked me because I'm not good. And what happens when you put the link up to our Saturday show that we do every Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern? I'll share it and put it on there. People, but is there a way where they can know where to go to watch it ahead of time?
Yeah, subscribe to the channel. What things you find online on Rumble.
Okay, so things you find online. Subscribe to the things you find online.
Follow. You don't have to subscribe. Follow. It's follow on Rumble. I'm trying to keep this exclusively on Rumble because I know there's no way in hell it'd ever stay on YouTube. I'm not. I don't do these things for money. I do them because they're interesting. It's interesting knowledge. He who must not be named would call it mental masturbation, but here we are anyway, doing it.
Okay, that's great. So go to the Rumble.
Well, Brian, do you I don't mean to cut you off, Don, but real quick, Brian, do you think the things I was asking? I'm just legitimately curious. The little things that here and there that I noticed. Do you think that it is irresponsible of me to bring up like little nitpicky kind of things like that can't really be substantiated? But do you think am I kind of out of line for like the laughing Monsignor, like weird stuff I've noticed? Like I know you can't really have a definitive answer or whatever, but to these weird things. But do you think that takes away from the other research or the legitimate stuff, quote unquote?
I wouldn't say it takes away from it.
Okay.
But does it really add anything to it?
Okay.
I mean, yeah, it's a good aside for sure. I mean, it's interesting.
But I want to be the best.
But does it add weight? Does it? Again, I like going for the meat. I go for the jugular. That's why I strongly suggest anyone who wants to know anything about that event, crack open that data dump that they call a report, and unfortunately, you got to go find the information yourself. It's not going to be handed to you on a well, it was handed to you on a platter, but it all got removed from the internet. So
I think one of the best things I ever did was go through the 11,000 pages of the Columbine report, because there's not a lot of people that I feel like did that.
Right.
I got burned out on all the stuff that came after that.
Chris knows Columbine inside out.
like Sandy Hook and things. And Vegas was another one that was pretty exhaustive too.
Yep,
Yeah.
and that's what happens. There's so many different things that happen, and not one person can cover it all. And that's why the group even came together, is because we knew we couldn't cover everything. One of us could cover everything. So everybody just went in their own little directions, whether, and brought back what they thought, and some people agreed, and
like one person covered the forensics, one person covered like the witness statements, things like that, right? Like compartment.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Correct.
Good day to William Hale from down under in Australia. Good to see you. John Bassablon asked me about Alan Sabrowski. Alan Sabrowski was on my show. It's probably been, God, I don't know how long did I start I Protest? It might have been 3 or 4 years ago. I think it's been a while, but it's in the archives out there. So
like 2018, right, on TFR.
Yeah, it's probably on TFR when I Protest was over there. So I haven't, but it's probably a good idea to talk to him again. Interesting guy. But so Brian, you're saying again, give it the Rumble channel is called what? Where the people follow that and they could just catch us at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Things you find online. Things you find online. I thought it was a good name because it's just a collection of things that I've found online and wanted to archive and or at least hope to archive. Who knows? Maybe Rumble will finally get the call and things will start disappearing.
Well, it's been something I look forward to now. The Aaron Russo film was wonderful. The 9/11 film we watched with the young Luke Rakowski. What was the name of that again? That was really interesting.
That was 9/11 Chronicles: Truth Rising.
Yeah, that was great. Of course, there's Loose Change, and which was not the one I had was the original. So I didn't like the new one quite as much. I think
I didn't like the new one that much either because they but again
toned it down a little. Yeah,
they were trying to reach a larger audience with it. So they just like some of the things Chris was coming up with, they left some of those things out that are just because
Dylan
again,
Avery,
they become things that are almost impossible to prove.
Dylan Avery was on my show too. It's been a while back on I Protest, and I haven't been able to get him back on because I've had a couple new movies, and I'm friends with his mother, Annie Avery, on Facebook, and she keeps trying to. I don't know, so I just for whatever reason we haven't been able to make that happen. But it's great watching all these things. I can't wait to watch the Sandy Hook stuff, and I don't know what other topics or what other things do you have lined up, or do you know that far in advance?
Well, next weekend, this Saturday, we're going to be watching the Obama deception. I figured we were, in the range of 2008, 2000, whatever.
That's Alex Jones's film.
This is Alex Jones's film, yes. And then after that, I guess after that we'll dive into Sandy Hook. It probably won't be the we need to talk about Sandy Hook because that was like 2.5 hours long.
Yeah,
and I don't know if you want to hang out that long.
You got Sophia Smallstorm's Unraveling Sandy Hook documentary.
I have that as well. There are a few things in that I don't really necessarily agree with, but that's my own. But that's why we watch these things.
She's get back to me. Deborah Wheeler says did Donald say the time for the show on Saturday? It's 8 p.m. Eastern.
8 p.m. Eastern on Saturdays.
So check it out. But and of course our friend Australian Ben Atkinson is there as well. A wonderful guy. Has been such a great supporter. He's the one that introduced me to Twitter Spaces, and I really should start doing them again. I got burned out on them. I did them for a while thanks to Ben, and at first we had a pretty good turnout, and I don't know. Then it just kind of petered out. I think it was my shadow ban or whatever. And it just got depressing when almost no one was showing up. But maybe I'll give it a try again because
you should. You really should.
It looks like Elon Musk has loosened things up a little bit. It looks like for me. It doesn't seem quite. I mean,
he called me up. He called me up, Don. He said, "Yeah, he was too harsh on you the first go around."
Yeah, that was the. Yeah, I'm sure he's been paying attention. Well, someone has been paying attention to my at least masking the truth. That's for sure. But it's at some point we're going to have like a COVID. I'm trying to even think what the best COVID one would be in documentary.
Oh yeah.
Don't know. I'd have to. Any suggestions you guys have? We could throw them in. I'm almost pretty much done with the the in order that we've been doing. Once we hit Sandy Hook, that'll definitely basically be the end of moving forward.
I actually have one for you guys.
Yes, sir.
I brought it up to John actually last night. One of the best documentaries that I've seen in a long time, by a journalist by the name of Mindy. I think she's out of Vegas, but I can't remember her last name. But it was called Route 91, and covering the cover up of the last.
I've got that on the channel as well.
Perfect, awesome.
She used to work for InfoWars for a short period of time.
Yes, that's right.
And all that's on the Rumble channel.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have it right here. Yeah. Cool. On his. I'm sorry, on his Rumble channel. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on my Rumble channel. Yes, sir.
Message me that link too. Will you, Brian, to the channel? I mean,
sure.
I know where to kind. Obviously, there's a lot of research there, and
I sent it to you last night, Don, in a text.
Okay, Chris sends me so much. That's amazing. Again, Peter Seakosh, I saw in the chat room. Great to see him here. He's the other super researcher that I have. That Chris is. It's perfect because Chris concentrates more on more modern events.
Yeah,
shooting, and Peter's really locked into the past. From Revolutionary and Lincoln to Wilson and Roosevelt. And he does a great job there. So I owe them a lot on that. But we're running out of time. Brian, what else we have a few minutes left? But what did you want to talk about that we didn't talk about, or anything you?
No, we're good. I again, I'm not out. I'm behind the scenes. I'm not meant to be in front of people. I know what I know, and that's because I'm behind the scenes producing for all these people. It'd be no different than if I worked for Alex Jones for 10 years. If I worked for him for 10 years, I would eventually absorb all of this information, and it's kind of the same here. Yeah, I have done some looking into these things on my own as well, which is, what has really driven my distrust of mainstream media. I always try to go to the source. And if you want to go to the source, you open up that data dump and you start going to town with it. But other than that, if you got anybody wants to follow me, you can find me on X. Names on the screen at Brian_D_Roberts. I post the things that I like, and I try not to get banned. And that's about it.
Yeah, that's about it. Well, and it's great. So you and Ben came up with this idea about the Saturday.
It was my idea. I wanted to show people the documentaries and stuff that I watched throughout the years, which helped shape the worldview that I currently have, and that millions of others currently have. In the hopes that maybe some new people we'll learn some information, and some older people who already know the information can help educate the younger people.
Yeah.
I'm not right. I'm not left. I'm a Gen X. Leave me the hell alone. I don't like people. I don't like liars. I don't like it.
Well, we seem to mesh well. Because I let our first guest, and there's so many people, millions of people still. And I tried to, I'm not going to argue there, because it's probably 78 million, probably almost as many people as voted for Trump last time. They still supporting him. He's got a tremendous amount of support despite everything. And people look at him as a hope, because I guess they don't see anybody else.
I don't see anybody else.
RFK Jr. fizzling out.
We don't have Ron Paul.
No,
that would be there is nobody else in politics. Period.
No,
that I'd be able to vote for consciously.
And Rand is not Ron.
I just can't do it.
But exactly. Trump, he just came out recently this week and said that he would vote for Joe Biden over RFK Jr. So he does things that you say, what you should be building fences with that guy.
That's true.
It's a real political thing. You should be making try to come together. But it is what it is. We're just about out of time. Chris Graves, anything you want to promote?
Yeah, check out Ron Paul's interview with my good friend Franco, Angry Tiger, on Rumble, Angry Tiger's Den.
Yes.
I just did an
That was a
interview.
nice coup.
Yeah, no, last night I did a new interview with my friend Jen Thompson, that was a Columbine survivor.
I saw that and get a chance to look at it. Yeah, yeah.
The last, I'll tell you guys, the last 20 minutes or the last half hour of that, we go back into the Columbine situation with,
She was there.
She saw other shooters that were not a part of the official story. And I will suggest for people out there, in terms of documentaries, The Columbine Cause by Evan Long, which was kind of like the loose
Putting
change.
it on the list.
Yeah, that's right. It goes into the witness statements, and Evan Long did a good job of putting up on the screen like all the different witness statements that corroborate Jen's testimony and other people of seeing like almost up to eight to 10 different shooters, not including Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. And Fabled Enemies, I wanted to bring up too. Jason Burmis's.
That's on the channel.
That goes into the more lightning rod topics of 9/11, like the dancing Israelis and things like that, and the ISI, Pakistani ISI. And also, I think you should check out John. Even though I don't agree with John Hankey's conclusions as to the airplane crash of a fourth passenger on the flight actually nosediving. I think Don and I have been trying to find the witnesses that saw an explosion in the sky over Martha's Vineyard, but it is worth looking at what.
No, it's good. It's good. Hankey is what he is. I've had him on the show, and he's
that's the assassination.
He thinks George W. Bush was the shooter at the JFK.
The Caltex building.
Yes, I mean, I just, but he does some good work, and the JFK Jr. Video is entertaining.
Yes,
and it has a lot of good stuff in it. So
that goes by the name of Dark Legacy 2, or AKA the assassination of JFK.
Absolutely.
Jr.
Well, I've got to run, Don.
Yeah, we're out of time. Thanks. So, Chris Graves, thanks. Brian Roberts, thanks. Now we'll talk to you tomorrow. People listen to me on America Unplugged tomorrow at 12 noon and 8 p.m. tomorrow with Brian Roberts and Australian Ben. So thanks, everybody, for listening to I Protest. We'll talk to you next week, same time.
Take care. All right. Take care, Don.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Thanks for coming on.
All right.